Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Even though this is my first video, because all the videos that I had made, I have deleted them since they only got like 3 views. But I hope that this video blows up. This video is basically a book review of all the books that I have read. Not all the books. I'm an avid reader and I have read about 130 books till now, and I'll be continuing to read more. So with this journey, you can suggest me some and I'll suggest you some. The first book that I'll be talking about is I Fell in Love with Hope. It's etched in my heart. I really love this book, and I think I stopped reading after I read this book for like 2 years straight. I don't know, I just had a really bad reading slump after that. Now again I've started reading, but this book is a book that I hold so close to my heart, and I don't know if I can ever bring myself to reread this book. To give a description of this book, it's basically talking about 5 friends: Sony, Neo, C or Kor, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and then we have our narrator Sam, and she basically fell in love with this mischievous boy in a hospital, and it gives like a background of all these 5 friends while also telling the past of Sam and how heart-wrenching it was. Overall, if I have to rate this book, it is a 10 out of 10, and it is a very sad book considering it has a lot of mention. So like there are trigger warnings in this book. It has mentions of suicide, eating disorders, hospital, SH, self-harm, and definitely a lot of mental illnesses, mental disorders. So again, trigger warning, you can watch out for that. But overall, I think it's a 10 out of 10 for me. Probably I think the best book that I have ever read, or very close to one of the best books that I've ever read. So the next book we have is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus, and this book, it's a duology, so it has a sequel, One of Us is Next. So One of Us is Lying, basically this book is about 4 children who walk into detention. They study at Bayview High School, and 5 students and only 4 walk out. And so it's a whole mystery about the guy who died, Simon, and basically everything that is happening. How did he die? Who killed him? What was going on behind this? Overall, I think this book was pretty good. It is also a very beginner friendly book, so I would definitely suggest this if you're starting or getting into reading. Like, I personally felt that the ending was very disappointing. Like, this is very personal because it's a very personal review, but I felt that the ending was so disappointing because, you know, it's like that whole plot, that whole suspense that was created, which was so worth it because I really liked this book, but it just did not make any sense, you know. So for me, the ending was a little disappointing, and just for that reason, I will say that this book is a 7.5 out of 10. The next book that I'll be talking about is The Teacher by Frida McFarlane. Basically, this book is about Eve. She's a teacher and she has a good life. She gets up every day and she has the same routine in this high school, and she has a husband who's an English teacher, and he's very well liked by others because physically he is very fine, and many students admire him and his teaching ways. And then it also talks about this high school student studying in that same local high school, Addie. So Addie has a lot of secrets. Nobody knows about that secret. Eve has a big secret. And basically this book, overall, it's a suspense novel, but I will say that the plot was very predictable. I think by the 100th page I had figured out what the rest of the book was, though I did read it in 6 hours because I was just very curious to see if I'm wrong or right. I think if I have to rate this book, I'll give it a few bonus points because overall speaking, it did bring me out of my reading slump after 2 years. only because the literature was pretty easy to read. It was very mediocre. The writing also was pretty mediocre, and I'm just saying this because I felt that it was very hyped on Instagram, on TikTok, on Book Talk basically. So I just felt that it's a little too hyped. But overall speaking, it is, if you have to read this book as a beginner, then I would suggest you should start with this because it is pretty good. It also has mentions of teacher student romance, has themes of like, it is a very realistic book, but then again the plot was very predictable, so I'll rate it about 6 out of 10. The next book we have is the Folk of Air series. Personally, I really liked this. This basically revolves around a whole fairyland. The first book is The Cruel Prince, the second book is The Wicked King. I don't know where it is, I can't find it. And the third book is The Queen of Nothing. Starting with the first book, The Cruel Prince. People often find it hard to read this book because they find it to be very boring. But I think it was so good. The plot is so good. It's based in a fairyland, and basically there is this Prince Carden, and there is this girl named Jude, and Jude's parents are killed by the court and they are murdered. So she's trying her best to sort of survive here, and then there is a whole enemies to lovers plot in the book. The first book itself, I will also agree, it is a little dry, so at times you do feel that you want to give up throughout the book, but I think overall it's just so worth it. It's in a book, it's a really good enemies to lovers because the hate is so prominent, it is so visible, and then it's a step-by-step enemies to lovers, so you feel everything. I really liked it. Then we have the second book, which is my favorite out of this whole trilogy. The second book is The Wicked King, and that book has me on a chokehold. It's a really good book. The second book is basically where the relationship sort of progresses, and here the female character Jude is not someone who you can step on. She is also very empowering, so that is very refreshing to see in books like this. She's not easily stepped on, she stands up for herself. And then we have the last book. If I have to tell you the order of this, the first book, it was very dry, it was very slow. The progress was definitely very slow. The second book was paced perfectly, and then the third book was very fast. I felt it was too quick, like it started and it finished, so that was it for me. But the third book is basically from I don't know if I can mention the details of second book and third book if you have not read the first book, but I'll definitely make a separate video on this whole series since I really liked reading this. And overall, the Folk of Air series was personally a really good trilogy, and I definitely recommend it. If I have to rate the books separately, I'd rate Cruel Prince an 8 out of 10. I'd rate The Wicked King a 9 out of 10. And I'd rate The Queen of Nothing a 7 out of 10. Next, we have Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I don't even know why this is in the list, but to give you a sort of background, I used to have a whole Colleen Hoover book reading phase. I used to honestly like reading her books back in 2022. First, because they were overhyped, so I was sort of driven by that. Second, they were very beginner friendly. So to be very honest, like in the year 2022 itself, I had read about 70 books because I started reading very actively all because of her books. Her books are very beginner friendly, but I won't even say they're beginner friendly. It's just that the writing is so mediocre, and there is no plot in her books. So this book is a 2 out of 10. If the background of this book, it has the friends with benefits plot with no strings attached, but then we know that Tate sort of gets stuck in this whole plot. Overall, I would rate this book a 2 out of 10, or 2 because I used to enjoy reading this in 2022 for some reason, but it's not a really good book at all because the writing is so mediocre. The plots of Colleen Hoover books are so predictable. There is no plot to begin with. there is no plot. Everything is literally the same. It's repetitive, and I don't want to hate. Yeah, I'm not starting a. The last book we have is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. It is a very refreshing book to read. I really liked reading this, and it's basically about Nora and Charlie. Nora is a literary agent and Charlie is an editor, and they both are sort of work nemesis, and this again an enemies to lovers. I think it's a good book. I liked reading it. Very moderate. I would rate it an 8 out of 10.
So that was it for this video.
I'll be continuing this journey of books. I'll be suggesting more books. I'll be doing more book reviews. So do let me know your favorite book in the comments, and let me know if it's good. Maybe I'll keep this video up, or maybe I'll delete it. Bye.